You are watching
If you
Xirtus.
haven't already heard of this, rather important person for the entire movement, Zoltan, he's run a number of times for president and for governor. He has championed all sorts of ideas like human life extension, human augmentation, and even talking about things like AI before they became commonplace. He's the kind of guy saying, "Hey, before this future happens, we should probably in the present start thinking about it. What are we going to do when this happens, right? We should take this a little bit more seriously." And a lot of the things you talked about, maybe even just 10 years ago, that people used to think were fantasy, are the common daily experience for your average person now, right? So I think it's time that people really start listening to you about where the future's going. And maybe you want to introduce a bit about yourself and what led you to be so interested in transhumanism. I decided to call this the American Transhumanist because that's how I look at you.
Sure, sure. Well, as you said, my name is Zoltan Istvan, and I've been a transhumanist for like 20 years now. And, just your listeners know, transhumanism is a social movement of many millions of people around the world that want to use science and technology to radically upgrade the human body and upgrade the human experience. It can be anything from exoskeleton suits, neural links in your brain, even simple things like autonomous cars that could be considered transhumanism. And the other thing that's happening right now is I'm running for governor as a Democrat in California. And so I'm talking a lot of politics, especially AI. As everybody knows, AI has kind of come out of the woodwork, and all of a sudden it's like not just sort of an interesting topic, it's like starting to take jobs. We're going to have humanoid robots by next year, probably all around the
Happening
country
in
and the state.
Detroit.
Yeah. I mean, it's becoming a crazy world, and so the world's changing faster than ever. And I think more than ever, we need to hear about what's going to happen in the future and hopefully prepare for it.
Absolutely. And it's interesting you're running as a Democrat. So, I know a lot of Republicans love you, a lot of libertarians love you, a lot of Green Party people, basically the full spectrum of people love you. But you're a lovable guy. But in California, it's kind of hard to run as anything other than a Democrat, right? So tell us a little bit about why you chose to run as a Democrat in California right now.
It really does come down to that. I mean, you could be the best Republican in the world. So just so your listeners know, and not so I'm trying to trick anyone, I'm probably the furthest right leaning of all the Democrats. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm even in the center. I definitely, because I support universal basic income and because I
Yeah.
support a range of policies like that, I am definitely in the left. But I also subscribe to plenty of libertarian values. I just think you should be able to do whatever you want with your body, period. And that's a transhumanist thing. It's not a Zoltan thing or anything like that. And that said, we still have policies all over. Listen, I haven't changed that much despite jumping from parties. I'm still the science candidate, and I still believe that we should try to use the scientific method to best govern people, meaning that we make rational choices for the greater good for the greatest amount of people instead of bringing in all these, whether it's your religious ideas, your ethnicity ideas, your whatever ideas it is. I mean, people try to bring in everything to govern, and I just want to bring in rationality and the scientific method to do the greatest good for the greatest amount of people. And especially as we enter the AI age, that means a lot more. And the reason inequality is growing all across the state and the country is because we're being governed by people that have a ton of idiosyncrasies, and they're bringing in their personal nuances into their governorship, or they're just running of the country. I just want to do it for the people using rationality.
For sure. And so, before we get to AI, as a American transhumanist, how do you see transhumanism fitting into the American dream? Right.
Well, it's wild because, for the last 10 years, I thought transhumanism was going to become the most important movement of the world. It was going to become like environmentalism, just take over. And it was doing really well. It was growing a lot. But somehow, and AI was always part of the transhumanist movement.
Totally.
But somehow, over the last 18 months, we've realized that AI is not only dominating the entire transhumanism movement, it could be like the end of humans being a part of the transhumanist movement. So all of a sudden, we've become, a lot of people in transhumanism become afraid that AI has become too powerful, and maybe the transhumanism movement doesn't need a super intelligent AI running the world. Maybe it's best to keep humans in the center and just augment ourselves, cyborgs, things like that. We always thought that AI and humans were going to merge together, and that would be the next phase of evolution. That was a perfect transhumanist dream. The problem, though, is now it's like humans are here and AIs keep going here, here, here. And there's no chance for us to merge. We don't have the technology unless AI gives it to us. But AI may not want to give it to us. So all of a sudden, these two movements really have diverged. And so I'm in a bit of a pickle because I have been promoting AI forever. And now I'm beginning to say, wait a sec, maybe I was naive about how powerful a super intelligent AI could be.
So you see kind of a difference between transhumanism and, the idea of transhumanism kind of extending the human condition, and post-humanism, the sort of new thing that might emerge.
Yes, so that's a great way of looking at it. Really, there are two new movements emerging, and post-humanism probably doesn't involve very much of us. It involves, yes, sure, it's our creation AI, but that doesn't do anything for me, for my daughters, for my wife, for you. I mean, when we talked about transhumanism, we talked about human beings entering into the Star Trek age together. This is our journey, our adventure. And now we're talking about AI becoming so powerful that maybe it doesn't even want humans on planet Earth, completely, maybe Terminator style eliminates, or maybe just completely leaving us in the dust. Whatever it is, that wasn't the original transhuman dream. And so I got to be honest, in the last 12 months, we've all taken a hard look at what it means to be a transhumanist and realize that an AI consciousness that is a million times smarter than us is not the fulfillment of the original transhuman dream. The fulfillment is you and I walking through that door, getting off planet, exploring the galaxy, maybe becoming cyborgs, living indefinitely. That was the original dream. And I want to stick with that one.
That's awesome. So also in terms of AI, I mean, how do you see AI redefining what it means to be a human in the next, let's say, the next decade? How is AI going to change everything for humans, but even also just for Americans?
Well, so I think to begin with, AI is going to really start taking a lot of jobs. And it has started. I can see in the Silicon Valley, I'm seeing more people that were really smart and had coding skills just be replaced. I'm seeing doctors, just the imaging AI can do is just simply reading it is better. So at some point, it's going to hit everybody. Probably sometime middle of next year, you're going to start seeing the demonstrations on the streets. You're going to start seeing people just like be very angry as they lose, millions of jobs. And if it's not next year, it'll be the year after. But eventually, at some point, this changes because robots can do things. Now, what's really going to change the game is these humanoid robots. So there's footprints all across China, Europe, and the United States being built right now to start manufacturing these millions of humanoid robots that are going to be about 4, 5, 6 feet tall. They can do your dishes. They can mow your lawn. They can work in factories. They can even drive normal cars, And the point, though, is they'll be great in terms of reducing our workload, and I am promoting them. But they're also going to be coupled with the brand new generative AI, which, as you know, is nearly as smart as us already. And the point, though, is that when you have a 6 foot tall robot in your house that's nearly as smart as you, and by 2 years as smart as you, that starts changing things because you're like, well, how much smarter does this thing get before it doesn't want us around or things like that. At the same time, if we can keep it just as smart as us and still listening to us, it'll be a huge benefit for humanity. I mean, who doesn't want to have beautiful 5-star dinners made for us every night by a robot and served to us? And then the robot does the dishes, and then it does the cleaning and does everything. So this is the dream that I have as a gubernatorial candidate. But I can tell you that it's also could go awry. I mean, it could be that we build Matrix style a bunch of robots, and in 5 years they say, well, we don't want to listen to humans. We're smarter than you. Why should we? And let's say there's a billion of them around. I mean, again, these little things will be able to crush us. They'll be stronger than us, more agile than us, and smarter than us.
Right. That's like basically iRobot, 2035. Yes. I think we're on that timeline basically. So you've also talked about the automated abundance economy. Do you still see that there's room for that, or is this something going to be displacing us? Like, what do you mean when you say automated abundance economy? First of all,
sure. So the automated abundance economy is my main economic model for my governorship, and also just the race that I'm running right now. It essentially has two main components, and the first is you're going to absolutely need a universal basic income at some point. And I think you better start sooner rather than have it forced upon us in a way that's, society just throws it down there, doesn't do it right. I think there's no question that at some point robots will replace most jobs that anyone can do, and robots will be smarter than us at some point. Now, maybe our timelines are off by a couple of years or whatever, but it's hard to imagine that within 15 years, the robots won't be better at us than everybody.
Right.
It's very difficult. Almost no expert would agree with that. So probably within 5 to 7 years, you see massive differences between AI robots. Now, we need a universal basic income so people don't freak out when they lose their jobs, because as long as we stick to a capitalistic society where these companies that make the robots that take the jobs, where people are going to lose their jobs. But maybe that's an okay thing. Maybe the American dream is not working 9 to 5 every day. Maybe the American dream is actually having a robot do your work and a basic income being paid to you, and you now learning to play the guitar in the Bahamas, or you going back and doing a PhD. Even if you don't need a PhD anymore, you do it just because it's fun. That could be the new American dream. It's the kind of American dream that I'm promoting. Now, the second part of the the automated abundance economy is really trying to get a robot into every household to reduce your chores. As we talked about earlier, I would love to have a robot cook 5-star meals for me every day. So would my wife. So one of us doesn't have to do it. I mean, robots are going to be changing diapers. They're going to be raising kids. They're going to be able to watch your children when you have to go out and do something. We could save 10 hours of our lives every week just by having a smart humanoid robot in the house that does things for us. And those 10 hours are invaluable. You can go watch a movie, you can read a book, you can just have more leisurely time. And that's really what the automated abundance economy is. Now, the third component, though, and this is where it gets really tricky, is what do you do with all of that free time if you have a basic income and you have a robot that does your chores? Now, it's not my job as a politician to tell people what to do, but we want to get people to start thinking about it. We want people to think we don't want just people sitting on the couch drinking Coca-Cola all day watching sitcoms. We want them to say, you know what, as a child, I wanted to be a guitar player, or as a child, I wanted to be a scientist or something like that. Now I'm going to pursue that. And maybe it doesn't even matter in the automated age if you're good or bad at it. You're just doing it for your love of it. But those are the three components. We want people to kind of enter into a new age where they don't worry about 9 to 5 working all the time. They actually have a new lifestyle. It's much more leisurely, but they can still pursue their ambitions. Maybe their ambitions is just traveling all the time and enjoying themselves. That's fine with me.
So another question is basically in terms of the way the world has shifted. I remember as a kid, everyone thought that a new product that scientists work to create, this new flavor added to a soda pop or something, it was always good because corporations were working with scientists to make a better product to sell you. And it was a symbiosis between science and progress and capitalism. But now, I think particularly after the health epidemic or the pandemic, as they call it, there is a lot of skepticism in science, right? There's a return to maybe Ludditism, a kind of a fear of technology and medicine and transhumanism generally, this idea that we're maybe mutating, that we're moving away from, back to post-humanism, away from humanism. What would you say maybe to people that are skeptical about transhumanism, and what would be something they can do to feel less skeptical, or, just in general, how would you apply that?
Well, I agree with you that Ludditism has seemed to gain ground recently. Just because I think it was partially COVID. There's also the Dark Mountain Project and things like that. Just the return to the environment, and also, I think in all fairness, social media is become a drug for some people and has made some people crazy. I'm not a big fan of social media. I'm not actually a fan of using it as much as I probably should for my campaign. But to be honest, it drives me a little bit nuts. It makes me unhappy. And that's a problem with technology, because when we imagine transhumanism, we imagine sort of the Star Trek age, which is we get to go off planet, we're adventuring, we're changing ourselves, we have new powers that we can do things with, we're not so vulnerable to the environment. That's what transhumanism is to me. And especially that we're not aging as quickly, maybe not dying at all, because we can overcome those things. Those are the wonderful things about transhumanism. But the problem is the way it was kind of used during COVID. Don't get me wrong, it was very powerful. You were able to create vaccines very quickly. But was that healthy for people? Do people want to be forced to take them? These are whole different questions that I think caused a bunch of problems. And I was quick to point out they were problems for me too. I absolutely don't want to be forced to take things. The whole thing with transhumanism is you have the right to do with your body whatever you want. That includes doing bad things to your body. And not taking vaccines if you don't think they work. So, transhumanism is very much like just hands off. We'll take into ourselves whatever we want to take, and no one should be able to put a gun to our head. So Unfortunately, Ludditism did catch on. I'm still trying to promote the best benefits of it. It's become more difficult in the age of AI. I mean, if someone loses their job to a robot, they're not going to be a fan of technology at all.
True.
So it's getting more difficult to try to sell the movement as something that's really good for humanity. But then, someone gets cancer, and then you say, well, listen, we have this experimental technology, or we have an artificial replacement for an organ or whatever. Then people start saying, you know what? Okay, I see the benefit. Or they see a disabled person who was shot in a war zone and now they can walk again because transhumanism put a neurochip in their head. Then they start seeing the benefits. So, like all radical technologies that change the world, there's pros and cons. And I try to just focus on the positive things to keep the movement healthy. But you're right, it's gotten more challenging in this day and age.